Hey guys, it's Annie, and today I have my friend Lindsay here. Hi! I'm so excited. You guys are always asking for more law of attraction success stories, and we have our very own in person right now.
I'm so excited!
You have like the coolest story. Lindsay has a YouTube channel.
I would say I used to do YouTube. It was like my full-time job for a while, but I would say I'm full-time Instagram now instead.
But your life wasn't always this like Instagram dream, was it?
Absolutely not. So growing up, I lived in a really small town with like a couple thousand people where I originally like always knew I just didn't fit in. I just didn't feel like it was where I was supposed to be. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends, and I think it's because I was so different. I always tried to be different than everyone else around me. I think it's just I wanted to feel unique maybe. And I would rebel a lot. So my mom struggled with a lot of stuff. So I'd say she struggled, I would just say addiction. She's always had a very addictive personality. She struggled with a lot of substance abuse, and substance abuse can lead to a lot of emotional issues where you go from really happy to really angry. So there were times when my mom was my best friend. We would always watch Gilmore Girls, and we'd get like big tubs of Ben & Jerry's, and we'd just, you know, sit on the couch and we'd make like forts, and she was my best friend. She was very quick to go from I love you so much to like I hate you, why did I have kids? And of course, so she was very verbally abusive, but she was also physically abusive. And because of that, I really lashed out. I think growing up, we all want love. We all grow up wanting love. So I started getting into drugs, and I started stealing. I would literally go into locker rooms and steal people's stuff, which is horrible, but it's what I did. I started doing lots of things where I would use my body to make a lot of money. Like I would do photo shoots that I wasn't really proud of. And I think that, like I've also mentioned, was because when I was younger, my mom would let me do whatever I wanted, and I was allowed to stay the night with boys. So when I was 14 years old, I was sleeping over with a 17-year-old, and to me, at 14 years old, I'm like, oh, we're gonna spend the night and we're gonna eat snacks and we're gonna watch Disney Channel.
Yay!
Yeah, and it did lead to me losing my virginity to rape that night, and it's definitely something that I struggled with. Like I went from one polar opposite to the other. Like after that happened, I like didn't want any guy to look at me ever again. And then when I was like 18, I almost rebelled the opposite, and I was just like, oh, I want to just take all my clothes off, because in my mind I was so negative. I was like, well, this is what I'm good for, I guess.
You struggled, like you struggled for so many years of your life, and like you grew up in this traumatic setting and had all of these traumatic things happen to you. So before we get into like the manifestation and like how you've changed your life around, can you tell them where you are now in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently I work for myself. I was doing YouTube full-time for a while, and then I transitioned more to Instagram because I'm writing a book now. Thanks to like my Instagram, my audience, I am doing a full book deal. I moved to Ohio for a little while at first, which is really random. I just wanted to try a new state. I met the guy that became my husband there, and we decided to get married in Santorini, Greece.
So beautiful.
We have traveled all over the entire world. We've been to so many countries, and now we live in Los Angeles, and we have a dream life. Like I went from not really being able to afford food to I don't really worry about money. You know, I don't have to, not saying that in like a bragging way, but I don't have to think about it anymore. Now if my brothers call me and they're like, hey sis, like I need a backpack for school, I can send them a backpack. You know, I feel like my life is completely the opposite of what it was, you know, when I was growing up.
Yeah. And it's so amazing, like, because when you're in that, when you were in that, did you ever imagine that this is where you'd be now?
There was this weird one moment. I think for the most part because I would rebelled like when I was younger. You know, our childlike selves like does think that, but then you get older.
Yeah,
you
for
get,
sure.
You get like worn down. You're like, well, maybe not. But there was this one time when I was hanging out with this older guy who, I shouldn't have been around, and we were doing drugs and we were getting drunk, and I remember laying there and I was like, I asked him, I was like, do you ever feel like you're meant to do a lot more than you're doing? And he was like, I think you've had too much to drink. I was like, no, sometimes when I'm not thinking about what my life is like, something deep down inside me tells me like I'm supposed to do something else. And he was like, yeah, maybe think about it tomorrow. And now that I'm older, I think back to that.
That was like your intuition.
And I feel like my intuition was like, hey,
this isn't for you.
This isn't for you. So I do think
cool.
some part of me did.
One cool thing that Lindsay has manifested, and that was the Avalon, that was like the big changing point in your life.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna say it right now for you. She manifested a freaking free luxury apartment, and how much money?
$70,000. And all my furniture from West Elm. It was insane.
So can you tell them about that? Like, let's hear that story.
So I was in this trailer, and this is actually, it's so crazy how like, sometimes I feel like the hardest moments when we want to give up, this is like the universe testing you, like how strong are you? It's not like how how bad is your life? It's like, you should think of it different. Like, think of like, oh no, how strong are you? Because here I was living in this trailer with a pretty crappy boyfriend. It's the guy that I just mentioned that I'm doing a video about soon. He was very verbally abusive and would literally like come home and be like, oh my gosh, you're so stupid, you're such a slut. Like, if you want respect, you should have acted like it your whole life. Like, you don't deserve respect. And here I was in this house, and I remember waking up one morning randomly just feeling like I wanted something different. And I was like, no one's giving anything to me. I was so negative. I didn't have any friends at this point, and all I had left was me and my negative thoughts. And I just woke up one morning so tired of myself. You know, I think when you get tired of yourself, it's like, that's when it's like you have to make a change. So that day I went online and I was like looking at like how to be happier, how to be successful, all these different things, and popped up The Secret, the movie on Netflix, which is all about law of attraction. And I feel like it's a very good like starting point for law of attraction. And I watched the entire movie, and I remember at first I was like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know what this means. Like, I don't know if it's for me, but I was like, but I'm willing to try. You know, I am willing to give it a shot. So I did, and I started practicing it every single day. Like, I'd wake up and be like, okay, yes, I'm living in a trailer and I don't have a lot of money, but they would say like, act as if. So I was like, you know, what if I acted like I had more money and I acted happier? And things, just little good things started happening. I was trying to be a photographer along with my YouTube just to make extra money, and I'd start getting extra photo shoots all of a sudden. Or like, people would be like, oh, I get a huge tip. I did a wedding right during this really tough time when I didn't have enough for rent. And this lady was like, we loved your stuff so much. She gave me like an extra $700 as a tip for my photos. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then one day I was in a car with an ex-boyfriend of mine, his parents, and there was this radio show on with Ryan Seacrest, and they were all not paying attention. They're all talking, and I heard something, and I had a feeling. I was like, wait, hold on, what are they saying? They're like, yeah, so there's a new complex. It's kind of like the Grove here in LA, where it's like a big apartment, and underneath it, it's like shops and movie theaters and fitness centers and everything you could imagine. And it was like this new place called Avalon in Atlanta, Georgia, is giving away a free luxury apartment, fully furnished, no utility bills or anything, for an entire year, plus $70,000. And I got free memberships to all the fitness centers. I got free movie tickets every month, free meals at every restaurant. They would like be like, hey, come in for dinner tonight. I don't think I cooked dinner once while I was there. And so I started really, I was like, oh my gosh, I just felt, because none of them were, I love them, they're great people, but they weren't paying attention. And I remember when the radio show was like, when they were talking about it, I felt like Ryan Seacrest was like, hey, pay attention.
Like, this is for you.
Like, he was like,
this is for you.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is important. And I went home and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I promised myself, I remember thinking, I have been so negative for so long, you know, and I knew at that moment, I didn't know what I thought. I was still kind of like, I was like in the middle of positive and negative mindset. I was having like that turmoil, and I was like, well, I'm gonna give it my all for this one thing. I'm going to visualize every single day. I'm gonna make vision boards. I'm gonna try really hard and see what happens. So I would go to the complex and I walked around like, okay, this is what it's gonna look like if I lived here. This is the coffee shop I'm gonna go to. This is the grocery store I'm gonna go to. This is the movie theater. And I would go there so that way I like used like the only money I had to get there for gas. That way I could go home and sit there and close my eyes, and I would visualize it. And I would visualize myself waking up in my apartment, what I wanted my room to look like, you know, what furniture I wanted them to get for me, like what my balcony view would look like. And I would visualize like every single day until I cried. That was my goal. Every single day I was like, well, if I'm gonna visualize this, I want to feel it. I want to cry. And so I would do that every single day, and then I worked really hard. I didn't just send them an essay on why I should win. I made sure to prove my worth, because I was like, I understand I don't have a portfolio like some people who entered might, but I knew that I could do it. So I made everything I could to just show my worth, and in the end, I won.
Yeah, so can you tell us about that moment? Like, you went in person to the grand reveal of who won.
Yes.
And what did you feel in those moments leading up to them announcing that?
So it's weird because I was really calm. I mean, obviously I was scared. There was a part of me, it was always like that little doubt, but I kept that promise to myself. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go up there, and if I don't get it, I'm allowed to cry, I'm allowed to be sad, but don't let the positivity go. You know, don't like hold on to feeling like this is yours until they announce. And so I remember walking around like still thinking like, this is my apartment, this is it, they're gonna announce my name. And I got there and I was I was so excited, but of course there was some fear. You know, remember the scariest thing to me was getting on the stage because there were like thousands of people that came out, and the winner, you know, it was like, I don't know if it was Ryan Seacrest that announced it. It was some radio show host that was gonna announce it. There was like cameras everywhere and all these people, and I walked up and there was these 2 other girls next to me, and I remember they asked each of us, what are you gonna do if you win this? And the girl next to me was like, well, you get free margaritas every day, so I'm gonna get really drunk. Oh. I know. And then the girl next to me, they're like, what would you do? And she's like, well, I'm really into fitness, so I'd love to use the yoga studios. And I remember when they asked me, I knew I won at that moment, because I felt like if they didn't, I had to.
Yeah.
Because I remember saying like, I'm gonna do it all. I was like, I haven't lived really. I've been, you know, I was a high schooler taking care of my 2 brothers. I was working 3 jobs to pay their way through school and crying because my mom was crying every day. I was like, I told them, I was like laying it out for all these people. Like, if I got this, I would feel like Cinderella. Like I can't pick one thing I'd be happy to do, because I would do everything. Like, I would make sure I lived all of it. Like, I experienced it all. And he was like, that's a really good answer. And I swear 20 seconds later they said my name and I just dropped to the floor and I was just crying. And I still remember like hearing my brothers in the background, because they're these tough little 16-year-olds, and my oldest brother was like, Lindsay, that's my sister. Makes me tear up. That's making me tear up. That's my sister. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was so
amazing. We're just crying. Isn't that so cool though? Like, I can just picture, I'm getting tears right now. I can picture that moment. And you have footage.
Yeah, I do. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, can you? Because you have the footage of you just like falling to the ground.
And living here in Avalon for a year. The winner, Lindsay Marie!
Lindsay! Oh my God.
I mean, and that's the moment that changed your life.
Oh, completely changed my life. Like, nothing was ever the same after that. I packed up my clothes and I put it in like little, you know, hefty trash bags, and I drove there. And when I got there, I was like, okay, well, how am I gonna make it where this year I don't just go back afterwards?
Yeah.
And so my only goal that year was to make YouTube my full-time job. So I made a vision board all for YouTube, like 100K, like my income. And like 2 months before I moved out, I hit 100K, and I had like saved up just like enough to where I could move to Ohio and start over.
That's so freaking cool. Oh, and like, can I point out like how important like the visualization aspect,
Absolutely.
like getting in the energy of that. Like, she made vision boards, and she came from all of that like toxic, you know, that life that you lived before, and it paid off. And you know, I don't know if you feel comfortable, I can take this out if you don't want me to say this, but she used to be so, she didn't want to share, you didn't want to share that story because you were afraid of people thinking that you're like rubbing it in their faces. Which it's actually the exact opposite, because if anyone out there is like experiencing the life that you used to live, it's like, wow, there's hope for me. Like, I can live a different life. The family and circumstances you're born into does not determine who you have to turn into, you know?
And for a long time, I didn't think, like, when I was in that trailer, I was like, oh, this is the life I have to live. And one day I just had to wake up and realize, like, I don't have to live the life I was given. I can choose something different. Like, I know when you're 16 or 17, it feels like you've lived so much, but there's so much time left to live a completely different, incredible life.
Yeah. And you've done so much since then as well. Obviously, you've already said where you're at now in your life. Like, check out the ring. She has such a cute relationship. They have dogs, and
he's incredible.
Yeah, and you have such a healthy relationship, and you care about each other, and you listen to each other, and you support each other.
I think it's all about
come true.
Like, when it comes to manifestation, for me, I think it was raising the standards we set for ourselves. So often we'll look at like people, like if you had a friend next to you that was being negative, you'd be like, hey, don't talk about yourself like that. Don't you know how great you are?
She does that to me sometimes, and I'm like, ew, I look gross.
And I'm like, no, you
don't.
No, you don't. So I realized, like, okay, why am I treating myself so poorly? And so I think it's like when you raise your own standards for how you treat yourself, and when you start to realize, like, okay, maybe I didn't have this stuff, but I can have this life that other people have. That's when you start thinking, okay, well, how can I make it happen? Because you can make it happen.
So amazing. And you've manifested so many other things, like your current life.
Same for you, though. I
know. We both have really cool like experiences.
We do.
And it's because we have faith, though. Just know, like, there are so many possibilities. If you feel drawn to something,
go for it.
If it lights you up, it might just be, it's very well likely because that thing is for you.
Absolutely.
And it's like sometimes your thoughts come in and like try to like self-sabotage, and like fear takes over and tells you shouldn't do this, but it's like, no, that's not the truth. The truth is that first initial like, yes, like you hearing on the radio, like that's for me.
How many people probably just changed the radio station when it came on, but I knew, I was like, wait, turn it up. I need to hear this.
I feel this, I'm drawn to this. I love it. Is there anything else you want to add in there?
I think my biggest thing is, even if you feel like it's out of your control, there is always something in your control. And it may seem hard, and sometimes it is hard. Sometimes getting out of a tough situation is hard. But my biggest thing is always, when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to a hard job, anything you're trying to get through, focus on the long term. Say you're 16 years old and you do have an abusive parent and things are hard and you can't leave yet, and you're like, well, I'm not gonna go to college, or I'm not gonna try because my life is bad now. But what about 5 years from now? I know that seems so far off, but it's gonna come really fast. So I always feel like, I used to be so obsessed with the short term, like, well, my life is bad, so bad now. I'm 16, there's nothing I can do. But I could have always started, you know, upping my mindset and being a little positive. Because how do you know? Even at 16, how would I have ever known the universe could have helped me more back then if I had just believed that it could? This is really random, but I've been seeing rainbows everywhere lately. And I told Annie that I saw one in a photo, and I went home and told Noah, I was like, I'm just gonna start expecting rainbows everywhere.
And I just
see them every single day. They're there. They're in all of my photos. So I guess what that metaphor is, if you just expect to see negative all the time, you're gonna keep seeing more negative. If you can just find the smallest thing even every single day to be positive and look for, those things are gonna multiply and manifest bigger. So if you look for rainbows every day, you're gonna find them.
I love that. What you focus on expands.
Yes.
I freaking love this. I love that you were able to share your story, and I know that this is gonna like inspire so many people. Because right now I'm just sharing my experience, and I'm like, no, Lindsay does a lot of the things that I've done, and she's had freaking the most transformative life out of anyone I probably know.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
It's true though. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for having me.
You guys have to go follow her on Instagram. She's very active there. As you can tell, she's very inspiring.
Oh,
so if you want more of Lindsay, go there.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess I'll see you guys soon.